good. So, for those watching on Facebook, there's a little bar on the bottom left of the video, and it's showing how many followers the page has. Now, if you see it, don't laugh, all right? But I figured I'd implement a hefty goal to try and get 10,000 page followers by April 1st. So 2 months. We'll see how that works out. Now, that's not unheard of because my Facebook page for Real Conservative Talk actually grew about 3,000 followers within a month's time back in November. And I slowed down on some of the content that I was posting, so I need to ramp that back up. But I figured it would be a good goal. So if you are watching on Facebook or you come in or you rewatch this, make sure you share the show and get it out. And don't forget to follow the page. Now, every time I go to do a show, I always say, okay, I'm going to do a bunch of research on some set topics, and usually it works out like that. Usually maybe the night before or the morning leading up to the show, I find stuff that I'm going to discuss on the show, and I'll go and I'll make sure I research, and whether it be statistics, whatever. And I started doing that today, but then I got caught up with some stuff, and then a lot of times, even last night, it's time to start the show, and I'm like, oh, hell, I didn't even really come up with anything I wanted to discuss. Well, I do have some topics I want to discuss, but I didn't get to do a whole lot of reading on it, but I think I can build on it pretty good. But I don't know who the guy was. He was on Twitter, and I saw a tweet, and it said how much Joe Biden's plane flights holding the illegal immigrants cost, and it was somewhere around $340 million. Well, that got me wondering, okay, if we paid $340 million in taxpayer money to, some illegal immigration expense, what would it have cost to build Donald Trump's wall? Now, I've never been that person that's all about, like, no, build the wall, build the wall, build the wall. But I am not in favor of illegal immigration. Something needs to be done. But I looked up what the expenses would be, and it was expected to have cost taxpayers around $21.8 billion over a span of 3.5 years to build it. Now, Theo Vaughn is a comedian. He's a funny guy, but he has a podcast, and normally you wouldn't go there to, get any kind of economic advice, but he had a Border Patrol agent on there, and the guy said something that was pretty interesting that a lot of people don't realize, and that the border wall is not just a physical wall, but it's actually a system that's been put into place. See, the wall would have been built in a lot of areas, yes, but what it also would do is it would cut down on the possible areas that illegal immigration can actually flow across the border, allowing the Border Patrol to focus their resources on those spots. You understand, the Mexico-American border is a pretty long stretch of land. And you can't just have people, guys would drive hours, or they use a helicopter maybe to get out to places where they think some of these people are coming across the border. Now, you can make the argument, well, it's hard for someone to walk, hundreds of miles in the desert in some places. Yeah, but still, people have done a lot worse. And I think that's often overlooked. People look at, oh, well, what's the expense of building the wall? Just putting it up. And will it actually cut out on illegal immigration? There's opinions that beg to differ, but one thing that is known is we currently stopped construction of the wall, and we relaxed on our restrictions at the border, and illegal immigration has grown fivefold. So while we may not know if having a wall there works, we know that the opposite does not work. So, and you have to do something. The thing is that you also have to look at the economic impact of illegal immigration coming across into the United States as it is. Currently, it is growing so fast. If you look at the statistics, I looked the other day when I did a show. I can't remember the number off the top of my head. It was like 250,000 not illegal immigrants coming across the border, but how 250,000 basically confrontations between the Border Patrol and illegal immigrants. So that's just how many times they're actually catching them. That's what's crazy. So there's far more coming across. And I pulled an article up just now. I think it was an attorney that wrote it. Let me see if I still have it up. But it was estimated that illegal immigration costs around $850 million each year. Now, that would currently be increasing. And here's the bullet points he has. He says Texans pay between $579 million to $717 million each year for public hospital districts to provide uncompensated care for illegal aliens. It says Texans paid... Sorry, this is just in Texas. It costs $850 million a year. This isn't even national. This is just one state. It says Texans paid $152 million to house illegal criminal aliens just 1 year. It says Texans pay between $62 million and $90 million to include illegal aliens in the state emergency Medicaid program. They paid more than $1 million for the family violence program to provide services to illegal aliens for 1 year. $30 million and $38 million per year on perinatal coverage for illegal aliens through the Children's Health Insurance Program, and then $31 million and $63 million to educate unaccompanied alien children every year. So there's a big cost to this. What's up, guys? Join Podbeam, and if I'm not always responding to the comments on Podbeam, I apologize. I got 3 different things going right now. But so just in one state alone, it costs $850 million per year for illegal immigration. Now, that expense will rise as inflation rises, and then it'll rise as the amount of illegal immigration that ramps up. So at what point do you sit down and you assess the cost of a system, be it the wall plus Border Patrol, that is built for $21.8 million? You know, when does the actual cost of what it's preventing, supersede that? It's going to cost money to stop illegal immigration. 100%. There's no doubt about that. Nothing is free, but it's going to cost money. The problem you need to look at is what is it going to cost if you don't do it? And there's a lot of other problems other than financial problems that can come with illegal immigration. But there's more impact outside of Texas, because the other thing they didn't take into consideration is that these people are coming here and they're working somewhere. They're being paid somewhere. And in any place that they're being paid at a lower rate and under the table, not paying taxes because they're not allowed to work, where some American citizen could be working there. That whole theory actually does hold true. It has yet to be debunked. When people, I think that often people in support of illegal immigration have this whole misconception that we have, it's college-educated individuals that are coming across the border, or it's people from Europe that are overstaying their visas. And here's the thing: there are illegals from Canada. There's illegals from Europe. It doesn't matter if they're white, Mexican, black. It doesn't matter. If you're illegal, you're illegal. It's illegal. There's no discrimination against race with breaking the law. There shouldn't be. Okay, so it just so happens that the vast majority of the illegals, at least the ones that we know about, happen to come from countries in Central and South America. And they come up through the Mexican border. Here's the other thing. Where do the majority of our drugs come in through? Or what countries do the majority of them come in through? Now, people will argue, it starts in China or it starts in Afghanistan. Yeah, but a lot of it comes through Mexico and South America. It's been like that for how long? We have a major drug problem here in the United States. People are dying of fentanyl all the time. It's a huge, that is a public health pandemic, not firearms. Why aren't we going to focus on, instead of having a, building where people can go shoot up heroin all day for free and pay for that, why not focus on trying to prevent the heroin use in the first place? If we have crime in inner cities and in poverty-stricken areas in inner cities, and we look at the demographics, and let's say it's an area town that is Spanish, how many of them are illegal because they can't work? What opportunities are they taking away from people when they move into these areas that live in these areas that could, potentially actually be better off without them there? And I'm not against immigration at all.
I didn't get that.
Damn it, Siri. But I'm not against immigration at all. My girlfriend's an Australian citizen. We deal with the whole visa thing regularly. I'm very well read on the visa stuff. I know that it's a pain in the ass to try and get residency, citizenship, or even just travel, especially now with COVID. I get it. But one thing I vowed to never do is do anything illegally, especially when it comes to immigration. If you want to have a conversation about, making it easier for people to come into the country, that's fine. We can have that conversation. If you want to make it to where you make maybe the cost of immigration a little bit cheaper, that's fine. But make sure they do it legally. I love when people use the argument, well, Michael, you're Irish. Your ancestors came through Ellis Island. They just came in. They didn't have to go through the visa. That was the legal way to come over. That was how they were supposed to do it. The United States told them, hey, you need to sail the boat over here coming through New York or California, and you'll stop at the immigration center. You're going to be processed, and that's what they did. There's literally record of it. I can go back if I want to Ellis Island and find where my family came over here. It is full documented record. But you have people that come over. We don't know who they are. We don't know if they're criminals, if they're druggies, if they're sick. That's another problem we're running into. Because the Biden administration, Jen Psaki, even admitted months ago that when these illegals are coming over, they're not even testing them for COVID. And I can't remember who it was, but there was an individual that was very left-leaning that I was debating once, and he was saying that he thinks that we should allow full legal immigration, and not only should we allow, we should vaccinate all of them, and that it would help the economy. And his argument was because the United States population was declining. We needed those people to come and fill those jobs. No, we don't. We don't need them to come and fill the jobs. When they come and fill the jobs and they're illegal, I don't know who that is. Come on, dude. But when
That's Corey.
Oh. But when they come over and they're not allowed to work, but they're getting jobs, you're taking an opportunity away, and you're taking tax revenue away from the government. It's as simple as that. Now, people are going to say, well, they pay taxes. They pay sales tax. They pay that. Yeah, they do. But so does everyone else. So they're at the same level, but then all of a sudden they're not paying any income taxes. Maybe they started a lawn business on the side, right? And they're going around and they're mowing yards. They're not paying the excise tax, the franchise and excise tax. They're not paying the local business taxes. They're not paying state income taxes, right? There's a lot that plays into this. Plus, how are they getting to work every day? Some of them drive. How many times have you heard of an illegal immigrant getting in an accident and killing someone? Now, that's going to happen regardless. but maybe it wouldn't have happened with certain people. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes into this. Again, I'm fine with letting people come over. But to just let it run wild is just ridiculous. It is crazy, especially when we want people to come over here from other countries because their countries have so many problems. Their economic standing over, they live in these third world countries. Well, okay, and at the same time, you're complaining that we have citizens in the United States that are living some in substandard conditions. So you want to as it stands, the resources aren't being divided up how you want them and efficiently to get Americans out of poverty, but you want to let 6 million people, 13 million illegal immigrants that aren't even American citizens to live here, and more come across the border every day, and just completely, you can't get anywhere. If you can't take care of them as it is, then you can't take care of more. If you can't afford one child, you damn sure can't afford 4. It's a simple math equation. What are the statistics of an illegal immigrant coming over and that they're college educated or they're trained in a trade, that they're skilled labor? Because there was someone else too I was listening to that they said, oh, it was Michael J. Steele, I think, that came over, that was having this argument with me about skilled labor. He said these illegal immigrants are coming over and they have all these skills that they are helping and applying to our country in these jobs with construction and all that. I said, Michael, there is a difference between skilled labor and unskilled labor, and they're unskilled labor. We have a lot of people that can perform unskilled labor here that aren't. If they're bringing over skilled labor, I would argue it'd even be worse because there's a lot of skilled workers that are out of a job right now. And I don't know of any country in the world other than the European Union, and we see they have major problems there with this, that allows just free-flowing immigration. In China and Mongolia, on that border, they actually shoot you on sight when you try to cross the border. Like, they have an agreement there where they shoot you. I'm not saying we need to start doing that, but I'm just saying that Australia, I dare you to get caught illegally in Australia. Good luck. Good luck. And it's just, he said, I sneak into Australia all the time. Well, that's on you, man. Because I know what they do. They ship you to basically a camp on an island and send you on. We're not even close to being bad towards immigrants. We don't treat them if we did treat them bad, it's not nearly as bad as what other countries treat them. But at the same time, it needs to be controlled, because who else could be coming up through there? Terrorists? Drug dealers? Cartels? We don't know. That's like saying, we're going to not allow Osama bin Laden to travel to the United States, and we're looking for this guy. But that motherfucker could just go to Mexico and walk up through across the river, and they would never know. He'd just come across some fake alias, shave his beard, and yeah, I'm just trying to come in here looking for work. Oh, okay, go on. Hell, think about it. They could blacklist foreign individuals from riding on a plane. And as it stands now, those foreign individuals could go to Mexico, walk up through Mexico, and then Biden's going to put their ass on a plane and fly them where the hell they want to go. There's your loophole. Come on. furthermore, you know what a lot of this costs? So I don't know if many of you are familiar with NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. There's an agreement between the United States and Mexico and Canada. It was just renegotiated under Trump. I don't know the new terms, but I was doing some reading about what it, what was the fallout? What did the United States gain from doing this? It was implemented in 1994. The American economy grew very, 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 very subtly as a result of NAFTA. But what it did do was it put some people out of work in certain industries, like milling and the automobile industry. It put a lot of Americans out of work. Now, I saw an argument that raised up a whole other topic I want to go into. And what it said that NAFTA did is, while a lot of the auto industry workers were put out of business, it actually saved the American auto industry. Because other countries in Asia and stuff were able to manufacture automobiles at such a low cost that we needed to move it somewhere else outside the United States to bring that cost down and be able to compete. That brings me to a whole nother issue. And that is fair competition with international trade. A lot of the problem with doing this whole globalist thing is not every country is on the same terms. If you play a sport, you are hoping that everyone has to abide by the same rules. Unless you're the NCAA swimming, you allow the rules to be bended and broke. And you allow for unfair competition, and look what happens. You get things like the transgender swimmer at University of Pennsylvania that is blowing people out of the water as a male swimmer, basically. He still has a penis and balls, and he's just crushing women in competition. The same goes for international trade. When we trade with countries like China, yeah, China's a very large economy. The problem, though, is how China produces the goods. And companies in the United States fall into the same trap. Now, I want people to hear me out on this when I say this, because this is just the reality of the situation and why the United States may not be competitive when it comes to a manufacturing standpoint. The United States is the most efficient country in the world. We have the most efficient workers in the entire world. The problem is that efficiency comes with a cost. We demand higher wages. We demand benefits. We demand a lot of things. Whereas the next highest GDP in the world, China, is able to compete against us with slave labor. That means their profit margins are far wider than they would be here in the United States. If you go look at the financials for a lot of the publicly traded companies over in China, I don't know if how correct they are. They seem like they're inflated. Hold on, I'm looking at Castbox comments. I'll address that in a second. But I don't know if a lot of those the company financials for publicly traded companies in China are inflated, but they seem to be. But they are like incredible. You look at them, and you're just like, oh my god, I'm investing in this right now. Then you look at where the company's at, and you're like, oh. They can create goods and services at a far lower cost. And since they can do that, tariffs don't really apply to them. The whole point of a tariff is to promote free trade domestically, like to try and make it to where domestic products are not just getting crushed by foreign goods that are being imported. If it costs Nike, $2 to manufacture a shoe in China, but it costs an American manufacturer $100 to manufacture that shoe, and they're both selling the shoe at $100 here, Well, Nike can then go, well, we're going to sell the shoe at 90. Now they have almost 100% markup on, more than 100%. It'd be like a $90-something profit margin on a shoe, whereas the guy in the United States still has to sell it at $100 to break even. So when it comes to, foreign trade and tariffs and all that stuff, I'm just trying to explain it so people understand, like, why we are in this situation that we're in. Now, someone on CastBox says, while NAFTA's provisions were going into effect, the U.S. bought just 5.8% of its imports from China. In 1993, according to MIT, in 2015, 21% of the imports came from the country. So you're saying that we actually increased trade with China after NAFTA went into agreement. That's interesting, actually. That is very interesting. And I would like to see that MIT study if you could put a link so I could go read that. And did they explain why that could be? We'll see if he gets back. But the tariff, when you implement the tariff on the foreign good, it makes that the consumer has to pay that tariff, but it makes that company charge a higher price because they have to compensate for the tariff. So, yes, while it may fall on the consumer in the form of a higher price, what is the consumer going to then do? They're going to go buy the American good, possibly, that can be more competitive. Because now it makes that $20 difference in cost, it brings it within maybe $1 or $2. And the only way you could even get around that is if the United States workers decide we're just going to work for free, because you have countries that are literally manufacturing with free labor. You can only have fair trade if you have everybody abiding by the same rules. Well, Michael, what is the solution? Because we're not working for free, and I don't expect anyone to ever. The solution is to have leadership that is going to be very hard on other countries and not take shit. Don't bend over to a China or a Russia. Don't give in. Make sure you're implementing economic policy that is going to benefit Americans, and stop worrying about what kind of financial gain another country is going to have. Let them worry about it. If China, China can come up with their own policies to gain government revenue. Be more communist. Hell, I don't know. That's what they are already. Not because their citizens aren't being paid out this crazy. The profits generated from slave labor are not going back to the slaves, right? Trickle-down economics in that shape doesn't work. We've established it. But yet we still want to do business with them. Or we still want to give in to them. We still want to, worry about, oh my God, if China, they could shut down our whole supply chain. Yeah, they can, but we put ourselves in that situation. We put ourselves in these bad situations with supply chain with stuff like Nafta. And Nafta also is a big reason why we have so Nafta was thought that it was going to lower illegal immigration because the economy of Mexico was actually going to grow and become more prosperous. Well, it actually didn't. So you had two things that happened. You had the peso crisis of 94, 95, which caused the Mexican government to go into a recession. And then all the manufacturing stuff that and infrastructure promises that Mexico was supposed to do, they only rebuilt the infrastructure in the northern part of the country, which left the entire majority of Mexico still as a shithole. So they didn't even abide by the terms of the agreement. And again, this is just some quick reading I've done. I'm going to do a lot more research into this because it was pretty interesting. But it all kind of plays into these little policies that are implemented. This isn't a little policy. That's a pretty big policy. But something like this is enough that long term down the road, it can have a substantial negative impact. And that impact may not come in the form of people are making less money or a bad economy, but it comes in the form of dependency. Because when we start putting in foreign trade regulations that are in benefit of someone else, then usually that means that we are becoming more dependent on that other entity. Because we're taking something away from the United States and we're giving it to them to produce for us or to buy from us. So these are things that need to be considered. Now, I'm not going to sit here and get into, what we need to do because I'm not the greatest person when it comes to the foreign international trade. I'm just telling you that we don't have people right now, and Nancy Pelosi actually got me on this whole thing because I watched that stupid-ass video of her addressing our Beijing Olympic team, begging them, please don't go over there and protest the human rights stuff that China does, with all that slave stuff, that stuff I just talked about. She goes, I'm scared of what China will do to you. Just go over there and respect them and all this stuff. And I'm like, you're right in the sense of they need to be aware of what the consequences would be if they were to go over there and actually protest that country. That's kind of common sense, but we don't need you as a high leader in our nation catering to China and showing weakness that we even give a shit about what they think. Where does that get us? Now they have her by the balls. Come on, you guys need to go watch it if you hadn't seen the speech she gave regarding the Olympics and our athletes over there. Hell, half the people probably didn't even know the Olympics was on. I don't even know if it's on TV. I haven't seen anything. But it was sorry. It was really sorry. Just like I've maintained a position, we don't need to be interfering in Ukraine. But at the same time, Biden doesn't need to be publicly stating what his moves are going to be if Russia invades Ukraine. He needs to maintain an element of surprise, especially after his whole mishap in Afghanistan. Because he looked weak after that. And now you have these countries that are taking advantage of it. And you look even weaker with his solutions to what he's going to do if Ukraine gets invaded. It's just downhill because it's all adding up. All of this stuff. There's a long list now of what these countries can and can't do. We can start taking over Ukraine. We can go invade Taiwan. Biden won't do anything. Or maybe he will. Maybe he'll just economically sanction us, which is funny in itself because I went over the economic sanctions the other day. At some point, especially with the relationship between Russia and China being a world economic power, if they sanction Russia, Russia will just go to China to get all of that stuff anyway. If they sanction the Russian individuals like Putin and his cabinet members or whatever they would be, like his high-up people, if they sanction their assets and freeze their assets, Biden's already announced that they were going to do that months ahead of time anyway, so they have either moved the money away or they have it set up to where those people will be well taken care of if those assets are frozen. Herbalist says the world needs to sanction China. Yeah, I'm not saying we need to sanction China. Like, sanctioning is like penalizing someone. Actually, you're right. No, we do need to sanction China for the whole COVID thing. I think there's a lot more that should be done with China. China should owe the world for the rest of its history after what they've done. Just on COVID alone and where we're at with COVID, China should have to front the bill. They should have to repay every dose of the vaccine that taxpayers have paid to have developed. They should have to pay a death benefit for every person that has died around the world. But us as Americans, we need to just focus on them doing it for us. I think, this is my opinion, I don't know if I do this if I were president or what, but, I'm sorry, China. How many Americans have died with COVID? Or as a result, we want a death benefit. Not only funeral costs, but lost income costs. How many workers have died? And now that family has lost 10, 20 years worth of income. Because that's how life insurance is calculated. When you go to decide how much you need as a life death benefit for a life insurance policy, it's not just how much would cost the funeral. No, it's how much does your family need to replace that person. If the breadwinner in a family dies and he's making $200,000 a year, and you have two kids that are still in elementary school growing up and they got to go to college, or they got to go, you got to feed them. You need at least $200,000 a year to maintain your status quo, at least until those kids grow up. We need to have our hand out over here at China, and what we should do is honestly and say, China, we're going to freeze the debt that you own. You're not getting another interest payment. I would say we're not paying any interest from the treasuries that you own. And those interest payments are going to go back to the American people that have been impacted by COVID, because you are a direct reason why the whole world is dealing with this. And then I'd fucking put Fauci somewhere in that equation with China on what we're going to take from him. I'd say you could do two things with Fauci. You could put him in prison, or you could say, you know what, you're going to work for free on how to unfuck this up. Eric says the Olympics is over. Or after the Olympics is over, we can expect the State of the Union address to be yet another shit show. Yes, it will. Now, on CastBox, I can't read the name, but he says Fauci funded the Wuhan lab. So this thing is on you guys. Why Trump has predicted that China will take aggressive action against Taiwan after the 2022 Winter Olympics. I think he's asked me, why has Trump predicted that? I think look, I don't know if Trump's prediction is correct, but I think what he's looking at is, if Ukraine were to invade soon, China's going to look and see how we react to Ukraine's invasion. And if they see any kind of weakness, then they may be tempted to go and invade Taiwan. I think that's maybe where he's coming at. But this guy said on CastBox, he said, Fauci funded the Wuhan lab, so this thing is on you guys. Well, Fauci, to me, is considered a Chinese guy. The moment he started to give my tax money to China for any reason in the form of a grant, not even for the reason of funding COVID research or whatever the hell they were doing over there, he committed treason as it is, so we should just throw him over there and charge him as he is, a Chinese citizen. That's just my opinion. He says, then why do you idiots have a Chinese spy as the head of the CDC? Look, these are things that we address too. We realize this. We're not the ones that put, if there's a Chinese spy as the head of the CDC, we're not the person that put him there. And it would not go down lightly with the citizens of the United States. So it's not us idiots. It's them idiots in Congress. That's what that is. We also have, who is it, the governor of California, Eric, or not the governor of California, he's something from California, and he was sleeping with Fang Fang as what's her name said, the representative from Colorado, Kristi Noem, and she was the Chinese spy. Eric Swalwell, yep, Eric Swalwell sleeping with Fang Fang, the Chinese spy. So over on
Um,
Castbox, that's what you're
other
looking
than
at. Go ahead.
not just Congressman Eric Swalwell, but did you know that Dianne Feinstein's personal driver was said to be a Chinese spy?
Yep. And did you also know that Mitch McConnell's wife is in that category too?
No kidding.
Yep. Go look at her. So there's a lot there. I appreciate it. Farsheet, sorry, it's real small. He says 80 million idiots who elected Biden grab ass and 70 million others idiots who believe in the establishment. You're saying, okay, so you're saying like the Trump voters believe in the establishment, the 80 million idiots that elected Biden are grab asses. I don't know if there's actually 80 million idiots. That's the question. All right, I have a guy that wants to call in here on Castbox. I don't know if Podbean can hear him. Hello? I don't think I can hear him. Hello?
How's it going, man?
Good, how are you?
Can't hear him over here on
Yeah,
Podbean.
what is your topic?
I'm just a couple different things. So we talked about, illegal immigration. We talked about foreign trade. We talked about, along those lines. And I apologize, guys. I'm live on Podbean, but I've never done live on Castbox, and I apologize for those on Podbean that are listening that can't hear the people calling in on Castbox.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Can't you hear us?
I can hear you, but I'm also on Podbean. The people listening on Podbean can't hear you, but it's okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so
Can't hear him on Facebook either.
well,
They should
why
be
do you
able to-
guys have a Chinese spy and as the head of the CDC and some other Chinese spies working in the government and people actively preaching for China?
Oh,
Or just
And
better.
80 million idiots who voted for Biden the grab ass. So what's going on in America? Why do you guys become so dumb?
you tell me. Can you hear him a little bit better there, Eric? I turned it up on Facebook. But that's a good question, right? Like it's not the American citizens. A lot of the American citizens see right through this. Like, we're not okay with a congressman sleeping with a suspected Chinese intelligence
80
officer.
million people
84 million, I believe. Actually,
who
or 81,
can
yeah.
vote.
Oh, yeah.
How the hell can 84 million idiots vote? Why do they have the right to vote? How?
I get what you're saying. It's funny what you're saying, too. Because we say the
Yeah,
same thing,
seriously.
but they still have the right to vote, right?
Yeah.
But you can't deny them the right to vote. But at the same time, it's like saying, why are we going to allow those same 80 million idiots the right to breed as well, right?
I'm just shocked. This Biden, he has said a lot of the crazy stuff. Like on the European convention, he said the N-word a couple of times.
Yep.
And he said it again on some other convention, I think.
Yeah.
Then, if it was Trump, it would be all over the media. Like CNN would just go on with it for months. But when Biden says it, nothing happens. I'm just shocked. Why? I'm not a conservative. I'm not a Trump fan. I'm not even a right winger. But I'm shocked.
You're a realist,
What
though.
the hell is going on?
Is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where are you from?
I believe in realism. Iran.
Iran. Okay. And look at that. And that's funny because you are you living in Iran still?
No.
Okay. Where are you currently? Are you in the U.S. now?
No.
Okay. So, and that's fine. You're outside of Iran,
I'm in Europe.
but you're not in the U.S. and that's fine. I've actually met quite a few Iranians, and they actually have a good perspective. And I don't know if you know who David Patrick Bed is. He's a
No.
He's a businessman, but he runs a big podcast. He's from Iran too, but he's an American. He's one of those realists. I like
Doesn't
listening to
have
him.
an
He makes a lot of good
Iranian name.
points. What's that?
He doesn't have an Iranian name.
I know. I thought the same thing too. But he was born in Iran, and
Yeah.
his mom and dad are both Iranian. But he's got a lot of good stuff that he talks
Oh.
about. But you're right. And what it is, you're a realist. And for those on Podbean that weren't able to hear him, what he said was, first of all, he can't believe that 80 million people voted for Joe Biden. which we all agree with. But the other thing he brought up said that there's a huge double standard between what Biden is allowed to say and what Trump would have been allowed to say and how the media reports on it. You know, he goes back to when Biden used how Biden referred to Satchel Paige in his story during his speech at the European Union, and then he did it again. He did it twice. And if Trump referred to him as in the same way, he would have been the biggest racist in the history of the United States. And this is a guy coming from a guy who's not even in the United States. He's from Iran, but he's not in the United States. He's not a citizen. This is just from the outside looking in, and he's not even a conservative or a right wing or right leaning individual. But he's a realist, and people actually see through this, and people in other countries see through this. Talk to people from Brazil. We talk to people from Australia, England, wherever, and a lot of people actually see through this. And it's even bad. It's worse when you have other people from other countries. It's like, yeah, you have a guy, you have people speaking out in favor of China in the United States. What is that? And it's known
Watch your
that China
neighbors,
does.
though.
What's that?
You gotta watch your neighbors. You saw what Canada did. I've seen on some, I don't remember where was it, but I've seen that they have been training Chinese pilots. So you gotta watch your neighbor.
We trained the pilots that were responsible for the
No,
World
no,
Trade Center.
Canada.
I know.
Canada
I'm just
is
saying,
doing it.
but it's not just them.
Oh yeah, you're right.
We trained the pilots that were responsible for the World Trade Center too, right? There's a lot
Yeah,
of things you
kinda.
can
They
go
were
back on that looks
Saudis,
bad.
but
We also trained
Yeah.
ISIS.
ISIS. They had American weapons, yes, U.S. Army weapons, but you guys, I don't think you guys trained them.
Mm-hmm.
They came from
The
all
Obama
over the world.
administration did. They set them up.
Oh yeah, that's believable.
Yeah, the Obama administration did because they were in. I believe they started out in Iraq, a form of them, and that was what they were. It was like the police state that they were trying to implement in Iraq, and then it evolved into ISIS. The Taliban too. We originally armed the Taliban to fight the Russians. Then the Russians armed the Taliban to fight against us.
Well,
it goes both ways.
yeah, there was no Taliban back then. I think there was the Mujahideen.
Yes, that's
the
what it was.
Afghani
Sorry, the Taliban
Mujahideen.
came after them. I think in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yes, but you get what I'm
Yeah.
saying conceptually, right? We fund these organizations that end up hating us, right?
Well,
Be it Mujahideen, the Taliban, Al Qaeda, ISIS, the Chinese, whoever. There's a long pattern that has developed that we are responsible for doing our own selves. And I say this all the time. This isn't even a Republican or Democrat thing, I don't think. I just don't like us interfering overseas. Maintaining a foreign
yeah.
presence is one thing, but just going on and policing the world, in some
Well,
country that
that's
needs
really
to figure it out
costly.
themselves. What's that?
it uses a lot of money.
It does.
That's what it is.
And I'm all
The
for
trillions.
military spending.
And I
Go ahead.
don't understand why there was this interesting thing in the stimulus bill. 20 or 25 million dollars was going to Pakistan for Pakistani gender studies. What's that?
That's it. So I put a comment on Reddit just before I got on the podcast about that. And for those of
Did
you
you
on
get
Podbean,
banned?
was that?
Did you get banned because of that comment on Reddit?
Not yet. I haven't gone back and checked though. I could have been. But for those of you on Podbean, what he said he doesn't understand going back to, and that was the American Rescue Plan, which is Biden's stimulus package in March, I believe is what that one came out of. It was either that one or the one before, but I would imagine it was in Biden's. And he's talking about where they gave millions of dollars to Pakistan for gender studies. So we want to talk about how we don't have money to do certain things here.
Pakistan is an Islamic republic. If you give them money for gender studies, they're not going to use it for that because Muslims don't believe in gender as a social construct. You don't
Yeah,
talk
don't
about
believe
kind
that,
of stuff
man.
in there.
Exactly. I know. Look, we're aware of this.
No.
We are aware of this.
Sorry, guys. I don't believe that Muslim don't trust the gender education or something like that. I live in Iran, and people care about females and women, and it's okay with those.
Let me ask you something though, and again, I'm only repeating what you guys are saying so the people on Podbean know. They're talking about the Muslim gender studies. Sorry, I can't read the names. One's name's Rock. He actually lives in Iran. The other one, I can't read the name, but
My name's Iraj.
what was it?
Iraj.
Iraj?
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay.
your pronunciation is correct.
Iraj. Okay. Um, and he's saying that, obviously it's a waste that we gave money to Pakistan for gender studies, but because it's an Islamic republic and it's a Muslim country that they don't even care about the gender studies. But then Rock, who lives in Iran, says that, actually they do. What I'm going to say
Yeah,
back
they
to that
do.
argument, though, on both sides, is that even if you care about gender studies, it doesn't matter what you think about it. My country should not be funding it. Why do we care? Just like, why do you care about our genders and gender problems in the United States, right? You don't. Why do you care? It does not impact you at
Exactly.
all.
I don't have to care because English is not my first language and it's not my daily driver when I go to work
Mm-hmm.
or when I want to communicate with the people in the society where I'm living in. I don't use English and I don't care about the pronouns. So we don't have that pronoun structure in the language that I'm using, which is German.
Yeah.
We don't have that yet. But we have some interesting thing. It's called Gendersprache. It's like adding the suffix of the in suffix to every noun. So yeah.
And what would
Yeah.
that do?
It makes
if you
it
could
makes it makes it feminine. Yeah, it makes it feminine.
Okay, so it'd be like
So you-
Spanish. You add an A, or an O and
Yeah.
an E would be masculine, right?
Señoritas y señores. You have to do it like that.
Gotcha.
Whenever there's a male noun, you have to put the female noun beside it, like Bürgern und Bürgerinnen, citizens and female citizens.
Gotcha.
That's how it works.
Yeah, and that's so you still deal with it though, just not with the he, she, them, they stuff. It's just different. But at the
It's
same
not
time,
about pronouns.
taxpayer money in a country should not be sent over, especially in the form of a COVID relief package, to something that doesn't not only have nothing to do with COVID, but has nothing to do with the United States. Why do we care at all about what happens in Pakistan? Because that's what gets us in problems with these countries. That's what if we start interfering in their way of life, they don't like us.
Yeah, Pakistan is the country which hosted Taliban for some time. Well, I think they still do.
Well, that's where Osama bin Laden was when we killed him too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there's look, I think that in the Middle East is not a place that the United States obviously we're always going to have our worries and we've been at war, but if you look at the history, countries go to war there and they stay at war there and they go down. I mean, they don't win wars there because of so many factors, and there's really just nothing there to worry. I mean, you had oil, but that's it. Like, what other interests, would we have over there right now? We don't. We've already killed the people that came over here so far and did the World Trade Centers. The whole reason we went over there.
Yes, you did.
Let's move on.
But America has a better oil, so you guys have oil.
Well, yeah, but we have a lot of oil. We have other countries we can get oil from, but we have a president right now that actually has shut that off and has crushed our own supply. So now we rely on OPEC and Russia and all that stuff. And so what happens with OPEC is even more exaggerated now in the United States because they have so much control over the market, because our president has eliminated our competitive edge.
But you see, the weird thing is when he stopped the pipeline construction, it made a lot of workers. You see, they don't have jobs anymore. So
roughly 10,000.
They're
the
jobless
first day.
now.
Yep, immediately.
It was in Georgia, I think.
Those are high-paying jobs too.
if I'm not wrong, it was in Pennsylvania or Georgia. I don't know which one.
It was
I
North
don't know which
North
state.
and South Dakota things where they were starting to build. This is the Keystone Pipeline. Then they had another, the XL Pipeline or something like that. They had a couple. He shut down the Keystone Pipeline though, and that's what cost everyone their jobs. That wasn't
Yeah,
oil. I believe that was natural gas. Uh, I think I could
but
be wrong on that, but
still the same. People went out of jobs, so
exactly.
lots of them.
Well, and they implement vaccine mandates that do the same thing, right? They look. You have and I don't know how it is in other countries because I don't live there, but this is how it is here. Is you have an administration that is bragging about adding jobs and bragging about all this growth and dropping unemployment. The reality is he dropped unemployment from almost an all-time high when people were forced to be unemployed because of COVID. You didn't do anything, but it returned itself back to normal is all it did. You had nothing to do with it. And then you brag about adding all these jobs, but you also got rid of a lot of jobs. And not just a lot of jobs, like we're talking about high-paying skilled jobs. Those people then
Yeah,
at that
skilled
point have to go
workers.
and get retrained if they want to get a job in another industry. They spent their entire life training to work on that pipeline or something like that. Now you have just cut them out and you expect them to go get another education or another form of training that's going to maybe give them a job that pays half as much because not always are you going to find something that can replace it. And
Yeah,
that's
that's the thing. And you see, getting another training or another apprenticeship or whatever you want to do
mm-hmm,
to start a new way of life, new job, a new career, that costs a lot of money.
it sure does.
So how the hell are they gonna be able to do that when they don't have any jobs?
And it also
So
takes time, right? Because
yeah,
they have to go and replace their job with another temporary job. Hopefully, if they don't have the financial means to just go get another form of training, then they have to go get training. Now, a lot of times, what you would see is if they went to another job that um, they needed that skilled training for, maybe that job would actually provide it and pay them in the meantime. That's probably
yeah.
what you would see. Okay, that's like the majority of that. Like, that's how that would go, I would imagine. But the problem is you have to have
Is
those
there any?
available jobs to do that.
But are there any workers union? I don't think so.
There's workers'
Do you
unions,
guys do
yes.
you, so you guys still have workers union?
Yes, it's just different by state.
Oh, okay.
Each state is
So
different.
maybe the workers union can provide some other jobs for them. I hope they do, because those poor people have gone out of their jobs. They can't earn money anymore. So yeah,
Not every state
you know,
has a
workers union is the only establishment or whatever you want to call it that actually cares for the workers.
yeah,
So
and kind of because especially in the United States we have a history of the workers unions actually being corrupt. The mob was heavily involved with worker unions.
yes,
And
yeah,
so there's a
exactly.
lot that goes into it. Worker unions, while they have done good, they've done a lot of bad too, right? It's also made it very um, difficult for businesses to operate businesses as well, right? There's a happy medium of workers' rights and businesses' rights because we have a lot of private ownership in the businesses. If you have unions that keep demanding and demanding and demanding, and then you have laws like they've had before where if the unions go on strikes, then they're not allowed to go and replace that labor. And then the business has no choice but to cater to the demands of the workers, right? That's why each state has developed laws over time to allow you to either fire an employee for no reason, which is a right to work state, which is like what I live in. They just say, hey, we just don't need your services anymore. Or they allow you to replace the labor while there is a strike. There's a lot that has developed with our unions here in the United States, right? I mean, you still have your big
Uh,
ones, like I think the auto workers would still
I
have
see
one.
where it's coming from.
Yeah,
Yeah, I kind of see where it's coming from, but yeah. But you see, Farshid in the comments has pointed on one interesting thing that's going on in the United States nowadays, and he says America's biggest issues is conservatism versus progressivism. And do you believe in that? Do you believe that the society in America is heavily polarized? And
I do.
do you also believe that it's a dangerous thing?
It can be. I think it's a good thing and it can be a bad thing. And on Podbean, what he asked, so someone in the comments, and then it was asked again on the phone. They asked if, one said, America's biggest issue is conservatism versus progressivism. And then on the phone, he just basically asked me what I thought about that. And again, it's good and bad. In the United States, we have a lot of diversity, right? We have a lot of different viewpoints. We have a lot of different cultures and ideas, and we have a lot of freedoms that allow us to express that ideas. And we have a lot of laws against suppressing those ideas, which is great. Where you do run into problems is when you start getting divided. You run into problems when you have stuff like media outlets and elected leaders and celebrities that are very hostile towards the other side. It's either their way or no way. And while I am a conservative talk show, I try to look at everything from a rational basis, which means that if I'm going to sit here and I'm going to express my opinion and make an argument, I want to have statistics and numbers and a reasonable basis on why I believe a certain way. And I also allow anyone to come on the show and talk. Like I accepted your guys' calls, right? I know who you were. You can come on and say whatever you want. That's fine, because I'm not going to censor anyone, and I'm opening to hear it. And I'm open to either disagree with you and explain why I disagree. Can it get heated sometimes? Yeah, but it's the what there needs to be in the United States is an understanding that it's okay if there's a disagreement, and we need to understand that people don't believe the same things you do. I went on for an hour the other day about this. I don't know if you know about Whoopi Goldberg or the whole thing that she did, but she said something about the Holocaust that was wrong, blatantly wrong. And the people she works for, well, she said the Holocaust wasn't about race, and she works in an industry that is run by Jews. Her co-hosts are Jewish.
It wasn't only about race. There has been multiple reasons.
Yes,
So
there are several reasons. But
if you read Hitler's book, he points on several other things other than race. Race was one of them.
Yeah, she just said that it wasn't about that, and then she doubled down on it. Okay, she didn't downplay the Holocaust. She didn't say it didn't happen, right? She didn't say that it was wrong. Like, she didn't support it. She didn't do anything like that. She just misstated the reason for it. But people got all pissed, and now she's suspended for 2 weeks. Now, I do not like Whoopi Goldberg at all. Me and her views do not align. I think she's just, I don't think she's very bright. But she shouldn't have been
deny
suspended.
the Holocaust, so she shouldn't have been suspended.
No, absolutely not. She should not have been suspended. And even if she got up there and said something like that, right? They're paying her to get up there and state her opinion.
She shouldn't be suspended for denying it. But where I live, if you deny Holocaust, you go to prison.
Really? I'm shocked about that in Germany.
Yeah, in Germany, if you deny Holocaust, if you state it openly, you'll go to prison.
So on Podbeam, he said, sorry, I got two things. On Podbeam, he said that he lives in Germany. If you deny the Holocaust in Germany, it's straight to prison. If you do it publicly and out in the open, you go to jail. That's wild. See, that's the things that people don't realize that we actually have here in the United States that we're allowed to do. The government cannot interfere with anything I say unless I'm presenting a threat, and I'm like going to put someone in danger. That's different, but the government cannot interfere. If I say the Holocaust didn't exist, they can't do anything about that. If I say Joe Biden's an asshole, they can't do anything about it. And that's what's great about that. And just going back to the original question about, do I believe that that's a problem with the conservatism and the progressivism? No, I don't think the political parties are a problem. I don't think that the different ideas are a problem. You need that because that's what's actually led to the development of our nation, right? Because not all of our founding fathers agreed at all. It was no different. They still had parties back then and different opinions and all that stuff, right? But they allowed those ideas to flourish. They didn't just have to side with the king. But
you see, what I was referring to was about the things that Tim Pool, the podcaster guy, was
I know Tim Pool,
talking about, like peaceful divorce or civil war, and I don't think that there's gonna be a civil war at this time and in this era, but
It could happen.
And
It's happened here before.
yeah, I know, but I also don't think that there's gonna be any um, separatism among the states, among the red and blue states.
I don't think we're going to
can't
go down that
happen.
road either. But there are certain things that if they did happen, it would 100% go down that road. Maybe not anytime soon, but it would be a direct causation of separatism or a civil war
Yeah.
down the road, right? There are certain things,
Well,
and one of it would be if you
true.
start changing the voting system in the United States, like they're trying to do.
Well, changing the voting system. How?
Because the way it stands, we're a republic, right? We're a constitutional republic. Most Americans don't realize this. I think more foreigners actually realize this more than most Americans. We're a constitutional republic, and we have an electoral college, and that system is put in place because we have states. Each state is like its own country. It's been like that since we were colonies, before America was even existed, right? And each state has different economies. You have states that are heavy in agriculture. You have states with more black people. You have states that are on the coast and on the beach that flourish off tourism. You have California that has media and acting, and everywhere is different. You have New York as a financial hub of the world, right? Everywhere is different. All the people are different. They all have different needs. A republic gives people a weighted equal representation in Congress, and those Congress people go there to represent them. So they vote for your Senate, your representative of your state. They go there and they represent you on a national level at the federal level. When we vote for president, we don't vote directly for the president. We vote for electorates that are going to vote for the president, that go and submit a vote for us, right? When you do that, then you make the presidential election, you allow minority groups and states in the middle of the country that have different economies and stuff, you give them a lot more representation. But if you do like they're trying to do and federalize the election and try to drive it more towards a national popular vote, then the president of the United States would be elected by only 13 to 15 cities, all lying on the coast. So you would have all the people that are, because those cities are heavily Democrat and liberal cities, all of those cities would then be able to determine what the best interest of the people in Iowa and Tennessee and Alabama that are farmers, and that's not right. So you basically go back to, in a sense, the entire reason why the Revolutionary War started, and that's taxation without representation, which is that the people were being taxed and government policies were put on the people of the colonies, but they had no say on those policies over in England and Parliament. They had no one to represent them. Well, as it stands, we do have people that represent us, but if you start going towards a popular vote, then you get completely rid of all that representation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I totally get it. So taxation without representation, nope, red flag.
Yeah, and that's why we had the whole Revolutionary War. That's the whole reason why we told the king, get out of here, and we started the United States. And we wrote up a constitution, and we had a guy, George Washington, step in and said he wasn't going to be a king, he was going to be a president. And he went 8 years, and then he stepped down. Then you had John Adams came in. The important thing that John Adams did was he was the first person to actually lose a presidential election, and while he was already in president, so he got elected president, he ran for another term and he lost, and he voluntarily stepped down. And that's extremely important because never in the history of the world has a leader voluntarily stepped down due to losing an election. All of that started then. All of the stuff you see in the world where people are going to these democratic countries, and like you had Rome was democratic, but they still had an emperor. Greece was the same way, right? The republics that you start seeing in the world now all follow the model of the United States Constitution. The difference is that we have certain amendments that other countries don't have, like the Second Amendment, the First Amendment. And it's written down. It is literally written in stone, where a lot of countries, like I think it was England, they don't have an actual printed constitution from what I understand. So there's a lot of things that will keep America from going down a certain path that a lot of people think we're going down. There's a lot of checks and balances in place. But we have an administration right now, this is what's scary, and this is why you see this divide between conservatism and progressivism. And you're starting to see some of these progressives actually go conservative because they're realizing what's going on. But you have people in Congress that want to stay there and have a career there and have all this power, like Pelosi and Schumer and Mitch McConnell, who's a Republican. It goes both ways. It does not matter.
Yeah.
But the
Like
Democrats want to,
Cortez.
the Democrats, if they could, look, I would never ever, I'm a Republican, I'm a conservative, I would never want 100% representation of Republicans and conservatives in Congress, ever. We're not, the United States is not built like that. You need different ideas, you need different parties, you need different opinions, right? What they would want, the Democrat Party right now would want 100% representation and control of the legislative, judicial, and executive branch. They would be 100% okay with that.
Oh no. Oh no.
The reason they would be okay with that, though, is because they want to completely transform our economy. They want to go more of a socialist route. That's why they want to be able to do that.
If
And that's
that
not good.
happens, well, that leads to that straight leads towards authoritarianism. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and
Now you see why people in the United States are getting kind of frustrated about things going on with Joe Biden.
well, they're right.
Yes.
They're not wrong.
And we allow foreign influence, going back to kind of the stuff I talked about in the beginning, right? We're allowing foreign influence on certain things. We're allowing, we're giving up power. Like, I'm not for us going out and taking countries over or anything like that. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But we need to strive to be the best. And then we need to worry about ourselves, right? We need to have the most powerful army in the world. I'm 100% on board with that. But we need that because if someone wants to mess with us, then we'll use it. We don't need to just go, oh, we had the biggest, baddest army in the world. We're going to go show everyone right now. That's not how it should be. You have it if you need it, right? But you're not going to just go out and use it. But we have our society and our culture, and I hate to say, but it is progressivism, is turning the United States man, especially the white male. It is pussifying him is the most un-PC way to say it, but is softening our culture. Americans are becoming soft, and then it's bleeding down into other demographics, but they want that. They want the reliance on the government. They want you to have to come to them for food and money, and they pitch it no different than any other I don't know how well versed you are on communism and stuff.
If that doesn't happen, so there's no reason for you to vote for them. So they're just doing it for votes.
Exactly. That's why they're letting illegal immigration in, and in their voting bill, they want to make it to where you don't have to show voter ID.
Well, they told the Cubans not to come.
Because the
all
Cubans
those
support
Mexicans
Trump.
are coming in.
Because
yes,
the Cubans
they
support
run
Trump.
they run away from a communist country.
Mm-hmm.
So they won't be accepting socialist or communistic ideas because obviously they ran away from a communist country.
Venezuelans too that come here. They didn't care about those people, or even some of the Haitians that were under the bridge, right? When you saw the people under that, I don't know if you saw that, where they were under the bridge, Haiti had, an earthquake, and they were coming over from Haiti through Mexico trying to get in. They didn't let any of those people in. They let the Mexicans in, though. Trump won an overwhelming majority of the Cuban vote. He actually almost won Dade County in Miami, which has never, ever voted Republican ever. But because he almost got the Cuban vote, he almost won that county. That's what's incredible about the whole election. Now, I don't ever get on here and state whether or not I think it was fraud or stolen ever, but I have my own opinion, and I'm just saying that when you sit back and you look at Trump got, 60 million votes his first election. He got 75 million in the last one, and Biden got 81. the numbers are just this. They're astronomical. The difference between
Numbers are
16 and
crazy.
2020. Yeah.
The numbers are really crazy. I don't really get how 81 or 83 million voted for Biden.
Yeah, and on top of that, you had 70-something for Trump. So just do the math, and then some that voted for a third party. So just do the math on how many people voted in total. That's almost 50% of the whole country went to vote. And as far as who's allowed to vote, which would be any citizen over 18 that doesn't have a felony charge, it was like 77% voter turnout, which is just unheard of. And over 50% of those votes, or either just under or just over 50% of those votes, came from the absentee ballots. And that was the big controversy.
Well, there has been ballot harvestings. There has been clips that came out. I've seen them personally.
Mm-hmm.
That people were harvesting ballots. So, I think some people were doing it for. Well, I've heard that Ilhan Omar and some people related to Ilhan Omar were involved in ballot harvesting as well. So
yeah,
I don't know how did that happen.
I don't know as far as that. I hadn't like with the specifics for her. I know about the ballot harvesting. I've seen all that. I don't know as far as how any of the.
Well, I don't get it. How the hell is she in Congress? Or how the hell is she got elected? She's openly preaching for jihad.
And she's anti-Semitic. There's a lot. Oh yeah. Not just her. Who's the other one?
She's a Muslim. Then how can she be anti-Semitic? Islam came from.
But aren't Muslims anti-Semitic,
Arabia.
especially in Palestine and Israel?
No. Listen, Arabs are Semites. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Arabs are Semites as well. So if they're hating on Jews, that's not them being anti-Semitic. That's them being anti-Jewish.
Gotcha.
See.
Wait, when I say anti-Semitic, or when we say anti-Semitic over here, that we mean it as hating on Jewish people. So that's like. But I get what you're saying.
Term.
It's different, but I always use it as a blanket term.
Yeah, I've heard Ben Shapiro using that term over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to call him, but some people did it. Some people called him and told him, "Hey, Benjamin or whatever your name is." Arabs can't be anti-Semitic when they're hating on Jews. They're anti-Jewish because Arabs are also Semites. That's the thing here. But you see, and also anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. They're not the same thing.
See, I'm learning something because I don't ever really even talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Semite is a race. Zionism is an idea.
Mm-hmm.
They're not connected, and not every Zionist is a Semite.
Gotcha.
Many Zionists are white, and many Zionists are not even Jews. They're Christians. They're evangelist Christians, and not every single Zionist lives in Israel. There are Zionists in America.
Mm-hmm. Oh
evangelist Christians or any others. That's the thing here. I was really confused when I heard people using the term anti-Semitic when Arabs were being anti-Jewish.
Because what it is, the reason being is because they use terms like xenophobic, right? Anti-Semitic, racist.
Mm-hmm.
Like they use these terms, right? And they blanket them, so it includes a whole group of people. And a lot of times it's used to just to make that person out worse than it's not that they're not bad, right? If you're anti-Jewish, it's still bad. It's just as bad. It's just they say it and they blanket it and they use those terms.
Yeah.
And they don't even like when Whoopi Goldberg said the Holocaust wasn't about race, and I think I hit on this the other day. I bet you there's a lot of people that would actually still make that same comment because they think race is just black and white, and it's not. The definition of race when you look in the dictionary is it's a like culture, language, ethnicity. There's a lot of different categories that people say, oh, well, that's prejudice. No, it's race. It's a race of people. The Jews are a race of people, right? The Muslims are a race of people.
Yeah.
Like,
No. Muslims are not a race. Islam is just a religion. Multiple races believe in Islam. Like there are black people who are Muslims. There are Iranians who are Indo-Europeans who are
yeah, but
Muslims.
what I'm getting at is
There are Uzbeks who are Muslims.
yeah,
They are Turks.
what I'm getting at as far as race and the way it's defined is just it's a group of people with a commonality, be it religion, whatever. It all falls under that actual definition. When you talk about race, it's not just ethnicity, right? Then you get into the specifics.
Yeah, there are two main definitions of race. The classic one, which refers to ethnicity and biology, well, that's what race is.
Yes.
But there's another point of view which says race is not only the biology, but it's also the environment that you grow up in.
Yes.
They related that somehow.
Yes. Because theoretically, you have the human race, right? And we all fall into that. So it has levels.
Kinda.
Yeah, and I mean when you really think about it, right? And it has levels, and you have the white race, but then do you, because you have so many different versions of white people. You have people from Australia, people from Europe, right? The Russian people and the French people are different, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's all different. So to say it was very stupid to say that the Holocaust wasn't about race. It absolutely was. But there's a lot of people that don't understand that whole definition and probably would have made that same comment that she did. As ill-informed as it is, right? There's no denying how crazy and stupid that statement was. But it all comes back to it was still an opinion as well. And they pay her to state her opinion. She has said things that were far worse
Who
than
pays
that.
her?
Well, she's on a show. She was on The View, which is a show for ABC, Eric, I believe, if you could confirm that.
Oh,
Yes, it is.
Yeah, ABC.
ABC.
Yeah, so
Yeah, the network.
Yep, so she said it while on live television, and she's a co-host of that show, and their whole point of the show is to go on there and they look up, current events, and they state their opinion on it. And now, no one really likes them. They're kind of stupid, and, they don't have, they have crazy opinions. Like, that's the thing. This isn't even the worst thing she said.
Opinion shows.
Yes. She did her job.
Yeah, there's a lot of opinion shows nowadays.
There is.
Like
hell, this
CNN.
whole podcast is.
Do you believe that CNN? Do you believe that Chris Cuomo's show was an entirely opinion-based show?
Yes.
Or Don Lemon as well?
All of them. They're because they're political commentary. They're not a news organization. It's different. So people think of CNN. Now, CNN used to kind of be a news organization, but now CNN and Fox News and MSNBC
What
and
is it
stuff.
listed as?
They may be listed under news because they talk about news, but they're not, like the individuals that are on there talking, like a Sean Hannity or a Tucker Carlson or a Chris Cuomo. They're analysts and they're a commentator, right? Like
Political pundits and
yes, they literally get up there and they report the news in a opinionated form, and a lot of people do know that, but they also should know that if they don't. That's why when you tune into a show like that, a lot of the danger is, they're putting out information that is extremely biased.
That's why I don't watch them.
Yeah, but you have the choice not to watch them, right? If you agreed with them, maybe you would watch them or not. It depends.
Well,
but
I kind of agree with some things that some opinion shows say, but I still don't watch them.
Yeah, and that's fine.
They're not fact-based.
Yeah, but you have the ability not to watch them. That's the big thing. And that's what I said about Whoopi Goldberg. The simple solution, if you don't like what someone is saying or agree with what someone is saying, just don't listen. Especially in the United States, right? It's not like we're in North Korea where the only channel on TV is political propaganda that shows Kim Jong-un and his father and his grandfather before him winning the war against the United States all by themselves and doing all this great stuff. Like, I'm serious. That's all they get, right? They have nothing else. They don't have, in the United States, we have 25,000 channels you can go buy in a package and pay $100 a month for. And if you don't agree with one channel, you have 24,999 other fucking channels to go listen to.
Yeah, there are infinite episodes of shows that you can watch on streaming services.
And if it's not on TV, you can go on your phone now in a country like ours or in Germany or whatever and look it up and go read articles. Go find it. If you don't agree with someone, don't want them canceled. Don't trying to impact their ability to express their opinion, because the reason why you want them canceled is because it doesn't fit your opinion. So you want to be able to express your opinion, and you want someone else not to be able to express theirs, and that's wrong. And that's why, as staunch of a Republican and conservative as I am, and I don't like Whoopi Goldberg, but I was very bothered by her being suspended because they pay her to do it, for one, but two, how hypocritical would I be to, because with my opinion, this is where we are in the United States, I get censored a lot on Facebook and all that stuff, and I don't even say that stuff that's even that bad, but because I'm not with the populist, group on Facebook and these other tech companies, they kick us off all the time. But what kind of person would I be if I am trying to fight that and against all the censorship, that the one time that one of these Democrats go and do the same thing, I don't support them and I want them canceled as well? That's not how it should work. It's I don't want them canceled and I don't want to be canceled, because I would hope then when something happens to me that Whoopi Goldberg is in support of me, regardless of whether or not she agrees with what I said. She just needs to agree with my right to say it. And that goes for everybody. I don't care how bad it is. It's one thing if you're actually making a threat, like, hey, I'm going to come to your house tonight and kill you. Then yeah, maybe you need to report that. But if you're just saying, I don't fucking like you, or you say something that's racist or whatever, well, now we know that you're racist. Now we know that you're an asshole, right? Someone says Joe Rogan is dangerous. He's not. The dangerous people are the people that want him not to be.
No. That guy's just a troll.
Yeah. I mean, I don't worry about these people, though. If you think Joe Rogan's dangerous, then you're the problem. But it all comes back to that, right? It all comes back to, you have countries, like you said, in Germany, you go to prison if you deny the Holocaust. Obviously, the Holocaust happened. There's plenty of stuff left over that you can go visit, like Auschwitz, one country over, and see that the Holocaust existed. But if someone wants to deny it, then whatever. Right? I mean,
yeah, just whatever. Yeah, they can go on with it as long as they're not gonna do the same, you see, do another Holocaust.
The difference is when you have the people in power, like the government, trying to deny it, and then they are forming education programs and stuff to eliminate education on it, and they're trying to eliminate from their history. That's different. But the government does not abide by the same rights that the people will abide by. If that makes sense, right? They're held to a different standard. The private sector, if I don't like what someone says, I can, or I can, if I don't like them not wearing a mask, I can tell them to leave my business, I'm not saying it's right, but if I'm a private business or I'm a private individual, I can react to someone's speech or opinion accordingly however I want to. That's because with whatever you say, there are consequences, and if you're going to say something, you need to be willing to deal with those consequences. Just because you can say that, go cuss your boss out doesn't mean you're not going to get fired for it. But when it comes to the government, it's different. The government cannot interfere with that. You can go talk bad to the government and stuff, right? They cannot. Why? Because we are also the government. Because we pay taxes, and if there was no there was no government. It's not like a monarchy where that person's in control of the whole land and everyone on top of it, and he doesn't care who dies, who lives, or anything, because he's going to be in power no matter what. No, in the United States and other countries, some other countries, the people are the ones that make up the government, and we rotate the government, with ordinary citizens. Like, it's not just some hierarchy that has been born and bred, with a bloodline like the Queen of England, and she's born into that situation. It's not the same thing. You're a president for 8 years max. And we need to implement the same policy with our congressmen and women where they have term limits, because we have people in Congress, in the Senate and House of Representatives that are there for 40 years, and that's not how it was supposed to be. You need to, it's a public service in the United States to go and serve in the federal government or state and local government, and that is it. That is it. You're not royalty. You're not a celebrity. Nothing. That is it. You are a public servant. But right now we have created a whole career, and we have created a market to be, for politicians. And we have people that have been politicians only for their entire life. They have done nothing other than public service. They've never worked in the private sector. A lot of the people have only worked for a political campaign, or only worked, for some politician as a assistant, and then they go run themselves. They have never had a real job. They've never owned a business, right? That's it. And that's a problem. That's where we're at. It's not the political parties. It's not Republican and Democrat. It's not conservative and progressivism. It's the assholes that are in our government that we elect in, that stay there, and when they get there, they don't actually go and represent the people that they're supposed to represent. They only go there, and they only make decisions based off of what is going to keep them there. That is it. And no one should ever be replaced by AI, because AI is never going to be as good as a human when it comes to emotional and behavioral decisions. But that's where the problem is. It's not, the split in the party is becoming more and more severe, and we're getting more and more hostile towards each other, because the people that are in office, they want that. Think about it. Our House, like the Republicans or Democrats, it works both ways. They enact legislation, and when that legislation doesn't get passed, they blame it on the other party. And they do nothing but criticize the other party because the other party didn't vote for it. And a lot of times, some of the criticism may be right. Maybe the other party just didn't vote for it. Maybe it was just a bad policy. But maybe the other party didn't vote for it because they don't want the other party to have a successful policy. Like, that's the problem. It's not about what's best anymore. What good does the policy provide, or what bad does the policy provide? It's only about, oh no, the Democrats are implementing it, or the Republicans are implementing it. And then it's the congressional divide between the parties, not the divide in the citizens themselves, because we're not like that. The regular people in the regular, just if you came to the United States, you're not going to sit there and just have liberals and Republicans arguing with each other out in the open. It's not like that. It's only, that divide only exists really in the media and with our elected leaders, and that is that. So, that's the problem. Go ahead, Eric. Were you gonna say something?
Well, I'm getting about ready to have to drop off here in a minute. I'll see you at John Gill's show in about
Talking to you, I gotta
15,
go
20
now.
minutes. And I did put, like,
If you have
a fact
other
in the Podbean comments
podcasts, I'll
about
be joining.
that support the fact
Hold on,
that
Eric.
Holocaust
Hold on,
really
Eric.
happened,
One second.
if you want to read that.
Hold on 1 second, Eric. And now, sorry, I'm on two different things. Hey, I appreciate it. Appreciate it. Let me say your name one more time, because I know I'm not.
Iraj.
Iraj, that's right. So you're from Iran. I'm thinking Iran, but then kind of J at the end. Iraj. Hey, I appreciate you coming in. It's a good way to look at it, right? I appreciate you chiming in. I'm sorry that the people on Podbean weren't able to hear you, but I also stream on Facebook Live, so they were able to hear. But yeah, I appreciate it. I'm going to cut it off on CastBox, but I'm going to keep going on Podbean. So
Podbean has a 3-hour limit, so
2 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. It became 2 hours.
Yeah. I just tried it on CastBox just to see how it, see how it was.
CastBox
I don't mind
is
it.
infinite.
Yeah, it is. It is. And my shows are all recorded. Like the Facebook live streams are actually uploaded to Podbeam and CastBox as the podcast itself. So you can go back and watch my shows if you wanted to. They're all up, and it's got the video, and you'll actually be able to hear the stuff that the people on Podbean were saying as well.
Great.
Yep.
So it was nice talking to you.
Yes, sir. You too.
Bye.
Thanks, guys, on CastBox for joining. All right. All y'all on Podbean, I really apologize about that. I didn't realize I would have anyone even call in on Castbox. I was just trying it out, the live,
But we
seeing if I
certainly
could do
weren't
it at
expecting that.
Huh?
We certainly weren't expecting that.
Yeah, I know.
But I think you might have just added some new material, but you're just only testing the waters. But
Yeah.
you're welcome to read that Holocaust comment that I wrote
Yeah,
where I
let's
stated
see.
some fundamental facts about it.
6 million Jews were murdered at the hands of ruthless
6 million
dictators.
plus Jews.
Yeah. Possessed by the devil and his followers, LGBTQ, gypsies, and disabled folks, and other non-Jews were murdered. Soldiers fighting in World War II lost their lives too. Yeah. That's what people don't really like. There's a lot more than just
more
the
people
direct
died
impact.
in the 20th century alone.
Yeah. Like, look at the war. What was I talking about the other day? I feel like I hit on this.
Catch you on the flip side.
All right. But I hit on that too with what Eric was saying. There's more fallout than like the direct numbers that you see, right? Like Hitler starting World War II didn't just result in the deaths of the people he directly fought a war against, plus all the Jews that he killed. It caused the entire world to go to war, and that's Japan, that's everyone else. Like think about how many people died in World War II as a whole. I think it was like 70 million plus people. Not all of them were directly killed by the Germans. So there's a lot more fallout that takes place, and it's never a black and white result. It's never a black and white result. There's always more fallout with certain things like that, like whether it be the economy, if you're raising taxes on a business, or you're allowing illegal immigration. It's not just, we let in 5 million illegals. It cost us, $20 billion, and that's it one time. No, there's more economic fallout from that. It impacts far more than you can even really measure. How many people's lives were impacted because of the Holocaust? How many bloodlines were ended completely because of the Holocaust? How Israel started after World War II. Think about it, there's certain countries, the Soviet Union in the Cold War was a result of World War II. Which means that Ukraine right now, and this whole situation going on in Ukraine, is a result from World War II. All of that stuff plays into each other. And then you go back even further and say it's all a result from World War I. There's more fallout. Think about World War I if you want to do that, but then if you just go back to World War II, if you want to calculate all of the stuff that has happened leading up until now, that is a reason, or that has derived from that war, then you calculate the death toll that Hitler or Stalin is responsible for. And that's the number that you're looking for. It's not just the 6 million people that he killed in the concentration camps and the 20 million that he killed in Russia and however many in Western Europe or in Northern Africa. No, it's all of that plus all the Korean War, plus when Russia invaded Afghanistan, plus the Vietnam War, plus over in Japan, right? I mean, there's all of that goes into it. Because our problems with Russia pretty much came up because of World War II. In World War II, the Germans started that because of stuff that happened in World War I. It's a chain reaction all the way down the road, but we seem to forget about that. We seem to cut it off and say, oh, Ukraine's its own country and Russia's invading it. We need to interfere. Well, Ukraine, I'm not saying they need to invade them, but you realize Ukraine was a part of Russia or the Soviet Union like 30 years ago. And if they were to take over Ukraine, they would literally be just right back to where they were not that long ago. In fact, 75% of the population in Ukraine, I think, is Russian. So again, I'm not supporting an invasion of Russia or an invasion of Ukraine at all. But I'm not in support of us interfering either. So that's, we covered a lot today and had some good talks. I'm going to go ahead and cut it off. John Gale's program starting in about 10 minutes. I got some stuff I got to do. So I appreciate you guys listening. Jason, you're getting in a little late. We're cutting it off. But the videos are re-uploaded onto Podbean. So you can see the conversation we had on Castbox as well. And then on Facebook, you'll be able to watch me and go rewatch the episode. It's also on YouTube. Go follow me on YouTube, please. It's just Real Conservative Talk. I'm on multiple platforms because I seem to get kicked off of a few, and then I got something to back it up. So go follow me if you haven't. And I appreciate you guys listening. Thank you.